My name is Seraphine Carter, and in 2019, I thought I had finally found stability in a city that rarely gave second chances. Detroit was rough, but it was home. I worked at a massive auto manufacturing plant, the kind where the smell of steel and oil clings to your clothes, where machines roared louder than your own thoughts, and where people either climbed their way up or got crushed. I wasn't just another worker on the line. I was a project engineer, responsible for designing efficiency improvements. My latest assignment was my shot at a promotion I had worked toward for years, a system redesign that could save the company thousands in wasted time. I poured everything into it. Late nights, skipped meals, missing family calls. I told myself it would all be worth it. But I wasn't alone in chasing that promotion. Ethan Hale, a coworker, smooth-talking, charming to the bosses. But underneath that polished smile, there was always something off. He wanted the same promotion, and I could feel his eyes on me every time I stayed late. The betrayal started small. A missing file, a misplaced tool. I brushed it off at first, telling myself maybe I was tired, maybe careless. But then one morning, I opened my project folder and saw numbers that made no sense. Calculations I had double-checked, corrupted. Entire days of progress erased. And when I brought it up in a meeting, Ethan was there, leaning back in his chair, smirking like he knew exactly what had happened. My heart pounded. I could feel the heat rise in my chest as my boss frowned at me. "Seraphine, these numbers don't add up. Are you sure you're ready for this level of responsibility?" I stammered, tried to explain, but Ethan slid in with a smooth voice. "Maybe she's just overwhelmed. I'd be happy to step in and help clean things up." Help? He was the one who sabotaged me. I knew it. I could feel it in my bones. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot long after the plant had gone quiet. The snow outside melted into gray slush, the neon sign flickering above me. I gripped the steering wheel until my hands ached. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. For the first time in years, doubt sank its claws into me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe they'll never see me the way I want them to. But then the anger came. Heavy, burning, undeniable. No, I wasn't going to let Ethan take what I had built. If he wanted to play dirty, I would find a way to fight back. And in that moment, I made a decision. A quiet vow that I whispered into the empty car. "I'm going to catch you, Ethan. And when I do, no one will ever doubt me again." But I had no idea just how far he was willing to go. The next morning, the plant buzzed louder than usual. I could feel it the second I stepped through the heavy steel doors. Something was off. A cluster of managers huddled near the production floor, their voices sharp, their faces tense. My stomach tightened as I walked closer, clutching my binder like it was armor. Then I saw it. One of the machines I had been redesigning, a conveyor system I had run tests on for weeks, had malfunctioned. Boxes were jammed, parts scattered across the floor, workers standing idle, waiting for orders. And in the middle of it all, Ethan, with his sleeves rolled up, playing the hero. "Don't worry, I'll sort this out," he told the supervisors, his voice just loud enough for me to hear. He looked up, caught my eye, and smiled like he was savoring every second of it. My boss turned to me, frustration etched into his forehead. "Seraphine, weren't you overseeing this system? How could this happen?" My mouth went dry. I knew the system had been stable. I had tested it over and over, unless someone tampered with it. I opened my binder, flipping desperately to my schematics. That's when I noticed it, a subtle but devastating change in the wiring diagram. A line rerouted, numbers altered. My design, but not my hand. I could barely breathe. He had sabotaged me again, and this time, it wasn't just embarrassing. It was catastrophic. "Sir," Ethan cut in smoothly. "Maybe Seraphine missed something in her calculations. These things happen, but we can't afford delays. I suggest I take over monitoring this project." Every word sliced deeper than the last. The supervisors nodded, muttering agreement. My promotion, my future, slipping like oil through my fingers. I stood frozen, rage and shame wrestling inside me. My throat burned, but my voice refused to come out. And when I finally spoke, it was too soft, too broken. I'll fix it." No one seemed to hear. They were already walking away, following Ethan like he was their savior. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the blueprints spread out in front of me. My hands trembled as I traced the altered lines. seeing his fingerprints all over my work. He wasn't just undermining me, he was erasing me. The thought made something shift inside me. If I kept letting him play me like a fool, I'd lose everything. But how do you fight someone who plays dirty without proof? That's when the idea hit me. If Ethan wanted to sabotage me in the shadows, then I'd drag him into the light. I opened my laptop, searching for surveillance equipment. Small cameras, easy to hide. My heart raced as I added them to my cart. This wasn't just about fixing numbers anymore. This was war. I whispered to myself as I clicked order. You want to erase me, Ethan? Let's see how you look on camera. But little did I know, he was already planning his next move. The cameras arrived 2 days later, delivered in a plain brown box. I signed for it with a trembling hand, my pulse racing as if the delivery driver already knew my secret. That night, I laid them out across my kitchen table. Tiny black lenses, no bigger than a button. They looked harmless, almost fragile. But to me, they were weapons. My only chance to turn this fight around. I carried the box into the plant the next morning, hidden beneath blueprints and safety manuals. My palms were slick with sweat, my eyes darting to every corner, terrified someone would notice. But no one did. Everyone was too busy trying to stay ahead of production quotas. I waited until the floor thinned out, then slipped one camera inside the wiring panel of the conveyor. Another went above the workstation where Ethan liked to check in. A third I tucked into a corner shelf, its angle covering most of the floor. By the time my shift ended, my hands were shaking, but the cameras were live. Driving home, the city lights blurred past my windshield. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could catch him in the act. But the paranoia set in just as quickly. What if Ethan found the cameras? What if management caught me planting them? Would I be the one accused of sabotage? That night, I sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop balanced on my knees, watching the grainy feeds. Nothing, just machines humming, workers moving in their rhythms. Normal, too normal. And yet, I couldn't look away. The next day, the plant was quieter than usual. My stomach sank when I noticed Ethan wasn't at his usual station. Hours ticked by, the tension crawling up my spine. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Camera 2 had motion detection. I opened the feed with shaking fingers. And there he was. Ethan, glancing over his shoulder, slipping a small tool from his pocket. He bent over the wiring panel, hands moving fast, deliberate. My chest tightened. This was it. Proof. But just as I leaned closer to the screen, his head snapped up. His eyes stared straight into the camera. And then, he smiled. The moment Ethan's smile hit me through the grainy camera feed, my blood turned cold. He knew. Somehow, he knew. I slammed the laptop shut, heart hammering in my chest. My mind raced. Had he seen me plant the cameras? Was he testing me, mocking me? Or was it worse? Had he already found them all? The next morning at the plant, the air felt heavier, thicker. Every sound seemed louder, the hiss of hydraulics, the clank of steel. But beneath it all was the echo of that smile. And then, like clockwork, Ethan appeared. He strolled toward me with the confidence of a man who owned the room. His hard hat tilted back, his gloves slung carelessly in one hand. "Morning, Seraphine," he said. His tone light, almost friendly, but his eyes gleamed with something sharper. Rough night? My throat tightened. Did he know I'd been watching? Did he want me to admit it? I forced a thin smile. Just tired, lots to do. He leaned closer, his voice dropping low enough for only me to hear. "Careful with those calculations of yours. Wouldn't want any more mistakes." The word hung between us like a blade. All day, I couldn't focus. My hands slipped, my notes blurred. Every time I glanced up, Ethan was there, watching. Sometimes from across the floor, sometimes just over my shoulder. A shadow I couldn't shake. That night, I checked the feeds again. Camera 1 was still live. Camera 3 too. But camera 2, the one that had caught him, was dead. Black screen. He had found it. I buried my face in my hands, frustration clawing at me. I was losing. And worse, I was starting to wonder if I was imagining things, if I had become paranoid beyond reason. But then, a noise, a notification ping. Camera 3 lit up, movement detected. I sat bolt upright, eyes locked on the feed. Ethan again. This time, he wasn't sabotaging. He was standing in the middle of the floor, alone. His hands rested on his hips, and then slowly, deliberately, he looked straight into the lens, and he waved. My stomach flipped. This wasn't sabotage anymore. This was a game where he wanted me to know that he was 2 steps ahead. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't done fighting. If he wanted a game, I'd play it, and I'd play to win. Sleep was impossible after that wave on the camera. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's grin burned into the darkness. By morning, my body ached, but my resolve hardened. If he wanted to taunt me, fine. I would turn his arrogance into my weapon. I arrived at the plant early, before most shifts began. The cold Detroit air stung my lungs as I walked through the gates. My plan was simple: bait him. If Ethan thought I was vulnerable, he would come closer, and that's when I'd catch him for real. I placed my blueprints neatly on my station, but not all of them. I left one schematic deliberately incomplete, numbers half-written, wires misaligned. To anyone else, it would look like a mistake, but to Ethan, it would be an invitation. The day dragged on with tension coiled inside me like a spring. Every clank of machinery, every footstep echoed louder than it should. My eyes flicked constantly toward the workstation. I needed him to take the bait. Finally, near lunch break, Ethan appeared. "Still working on that redesign?" he asked casually, sliding up beside me. His cologne was sharp, invasive, and the smirk on his face told me he smelled victory. "Yeah," I replied, keeping my tone flat. "Haven't gotten it right yet." His eyes dropped to the schematic. He tilted his head just slightly, then chuckled. Might want to double-check that line. Would be a shame if someone noticed." And then he tapped the exact spot I'd left wrong, my trap. My pulse thundered. Did he know it was bait, or was he falling for it? That night, I checked the feeds again. Hours of footage scrolled by. Nothing. And then, motion detected. The camera above my station flickered to life. Ethan slipped into view, long after the plant was empty. He sat at my desk, lifted the blueprint, and pulled a pen from his pocket. His hand moved quickly, correcting numbers, shifting lines, rewriting my work to make me look incompetent. I leaned closer to the screen, barely breathing. This was it. Hard proof. But then, something strange. He stopped, looked up at the camera, the one I had hidden so carefully, and for the second time, he smiled. Except this time, he didn't wave. This time, he pressed a note against the lens. In black marker, scrawled letters stared back at me. "Nice try." The note haunted me all night. Nice try. 2 simple words, but they cut deeper than any sabotage he'd pulled before. He knew I was watching. He wanted me to know. This wasn't just about sabotaging my project anymore. It was about breaking me. I sat in my apartment, the city lights bleeding through the blinds. My blueprints lay scattered across the coffee table, useless now. My stomach twisted with dread. No matter what trap I set, Ethan seemed to be a step ahead. Was I out of my depth? Was I already defeated? But then anger surged. No. If he wanted to drag this into a game, then I needed to change the rules. Stop fighting him on his terms. The factory floor wasn't my only battlefield. The next day, I walked into the plant with my head high. Though inside my chest, my heart was pounding. Ethan was already there, leaning against a workstation, chatting with 2 supervisors like they were old friends. He laughed at something one of them said, his hand resting casually on the blueprints in front of him. My blueprints. I forced myself to keep walking. My rage boiled, but showing it would only feed him. That night, I reached out to an old friend, Layla, a tech-savvy woman I'd gone to college with. She worked in IT security now, and if anyone could help me fight smarter, it was her. When I explained what had been happening, Layla's voice tightened. "Seraphine, this isn't just sabotage. He's manipulating your workplace, gaslighting you. You need more than cameras. You need a digital trail." Her words lit a fire in me. She was right. If Ethan was editing my work, slipping changes into schematics, there had to be fingerprints left behind. Digital timestamps, logins, access records. Something I could use. We made a plan. Layla would help me set up a tracking system on the shared drives, silent but precise. Every time someone opened my files, I'd know. Every change, every edit recorded. For the first time in weeks, I felt power returning to me. Ethan had been watching me, but soon I'd be watching him. But just as the hope began to take root, the factory walls pressed in again. The next morning, a new rumor spread like fire, workers whispering, glancing at me as I passed. By lunch break, one of my coworkers finally said it aloud. "Hey, Seraphine, I heard you've been making mistakes on purpose, to slow the team down. Is that true?" My blood ran cold. Ethan wasn't just sabotaging my work, he was sabotaging my reputation. And if management believed him, my career wouldn't just stall, it would end. The whispers followed me everywhere. In the cafeteria, conversations hushed when I walked past. On the production floor, co-workers who once trusted me now avoided my eyes. It was like poison spreading through the air, and Ethan had poured it drop by drop. At first, I tried to ignore it, focus on the work, keep my head down, wait for Layla's tracking system to reveal his moves. But the damage was worse than I imagined. By the end of the week, I was called into my supervisor's office. "Seraphine," he said, his voice calm but edged with suspicion. "There's been talk, mistakes, delays. Some people think you're not invested anymore." The words hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened, heat pricked at my eyes. "I'm invested," I said firmly. "I've given everything to this project. If mistakes are happening, it's because someone's tampering with my work." He leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" My throat closed. Not yet, but soon. I left his office feeling smaller than ever. Ethan was winning. That night, Layla called me. "Check your email," she said, excitement in her voice. I opened the file she sent. A log, neat and clear. Every time my blueprints had been accessed. My name was there, dozens of times, during my working hours. But there was another name too, Ethan Hale. And his access times? Always late. Always after hours. My pulse quickened. This was it. This was what I needed. But before I could even feel victory, Layla's voice cut in, sharp and worried. "Seraphine, I think he knows. I saw failed login attempts. Almost like he realized someone was watching him. If he catches on, he might wipe everything." My stomach sank. If Ethan erased the evidence, all I'd have left were rumors and suspicion. And the next morning, when I walked into the plant, I froze. Pinned to the notice board, in full view of every worker, was a printed page. My blueprint. My calculations. Numbers scratched out. Corrections scrawled in red. At the bottom, someone had written in bold letters, "Sloppy, unfit for promotion." I didn't need to guess who put it there. The red ink on my blueprint burned into my vision all day. Sloppy, unfit for promotion. Every time I walked past the board, I could feel the stares. Some people looked away in pity. Others smirked, like they had already judged me guilty. For the first time, I thought about quitting, just walking away, leaving the plant and Ethan and all of it behind. But then I remembered the years I had poured into this job, the nights I spent proving myself, the sacrifices no one ever saw. And the rage came back, hotter than before. I wasn't going to walk away, not now, not ever. If Ethan wanted a war, I'd give him one. That night, I met Layla in a quiet diner on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered above us as we slid into the booth, coffee steaming between us. "He's winning the public game," I admitted, my voice low. "But I have to win the private one." "You said the digital trail could nail him?" Layla nodded, sliding her laptop across the table. "I've been monitoring the logs. Ethan's been accessing your files almost every night, and he's careless. His login credentials, his device ID, all traceable." My hands tightened around the coffee cup. "So how do we use it?" She smiled. "We set a trap he can't resist. You'll create a fake blueprint, something that looks important, tempting. He'll edit it. And when he does, I'll capture everything. Screen records, timestamps, IP address. Enough to bury him." The thought sent a chill down my spine. A dangerous move, but the first real chance I had. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's do it." For the next few days, I crafted a blueprint designed to bait him. Complex but flawed, filled with mistakes that begged to be corrected. Every line of it was a lure, and it worked. On the fourth night, Layla called me, her voice urgent. "He's in. He took the bait. I've got it all, the edits, the logins, the entire digital footprint. Seraphine, we've got him. Relief surged through me so strongly I had to sit down. For the first time, victory was within reach. But as I closed my eyes, breathing in shaky triumph, my phone buzzed again. A new message. Unknown number. I opened it and my stomach dropped. A single photo stared back at me. Of me, sitting in my car outside the plant. Taken that same night. And beneath it, the message read, "You're not the only one watching." The photo glared back at me from my phone screen. Me, sitting in my car outside the plant. He wasn't just sabotaging my work anymore. He was following me, watching me. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. For the first time, I wasn't just angry, I was afraid. Truly afraid. I locked every door and window that night, triple-checked them like a prisoner guarding her cell. But the worst part wasn't the fear of him breaking in. It was the certainty that he wanted me to know he was there. Sleep never came. Every car passing outside, every creak of the building made me sit up in bed, heart pounding. I hated how much power he suddenly had over my nights. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. If Ethan wanted to turn this into psychological warfare, then I had to escalate too. I couldn't just react. I had to strike first. That morning at the plant, he strolled past me with a smug look, as if nothing had happened. "Late night?" he asked casually, voice smooth as oil. I didn't answer. I couldn't trust my voice not to crack. Instead, I stared him down until his smile faltered just slightly. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. That night, I met with Layla again. My exhaustion was obvious, but my resolve was sharper. "I think he's watching me outside of work," I admitted, sliding my phone across the booth to show her the photo. Her eyes widened. "Seraphine, this isn't just office sabotage anymore. This is stalking, dangerous. You need to go to HR or the police." I shook my head. "Not yet. If I go too soon, without the full picture, he'll twist it like he always does. He'll make it look like I'm paranoid. I need to catch him clean. Undeniable." Layla bit her lip, then nodded reluctantly. "Then we tighten the net. Cameras aren't enough. We'll track his physical moves too. GPS logs, timestamps, everything." Together, we built a plan. Layla set up motion alerts synced to my phone, not just in the plant, but around my apartment. She even showed me how to mirror my feeds to an external backup, in case Ethan tried to wipe evidence. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. But the reprieve didn't last. The next morning, when I parked outside the plant, something was waiting on my windshield. A single piece of paper taped neatly under the wiper. I peeled it free with trembling fingers. It was one of my own blueprints, the bait file. Across it, written in thick black marker, were 3 words. "Always ahead." The words on the blueprint burned in my mind. Always ahead. It wasn't just arrogance anymore. It was a declaration, a warning. Ethan wasn't content with sabotaging me at work. He was slipping into my life, twisting the knife deeper every day. That morning, I crumpled the paper in my fist and marched straight into the plant. My coworkers stared, whispers buzzing, but I didn't care. My anger drowned everything out. When I reached my station, Ethan was already there, leaning casually against my desk, as if it belonged to him. "Well," he said, his voice calm, mocking. "You look tense. Long night?" I forced myself to keep my tone steady. "I know what you're doing, and I have proof." For the first time, a flicker crossed his face. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that infuriating smirk. "Proof? Or just paranoia?" he said softly, leaning closer. "Careful, Seraphine. People already think you're unstable. One more outburst, and they'll believe me." I clenched my fist so tight my nails bit into my palms. I wanted to scream, to slap that smirk off his face. But instead, I turned and walked away. He thrived on my reaction. I wouldn't give it to him. That night, Layla and I met again, this time in her apartment. The walls were lined with monitors, glowing with streams of data she had been collecting. "Seraphine," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. "He's escalating. He's been in your files every single night. And I think he's trying to breach my systems too. If he succeeds, he could wipe every trace we've collected." Fear coiled in my chest, but I steadied my breath. "Then we move faster. We take this to management. Tomorrow." Layla hesitated. "Are you sure? If they don't believe you?" They'll believe the logs, the timestamps, the video feeds. This ends now. But the next morning, before I could even make it to the supervisor's office, the plant alarms blared. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. Workers scattered as the production line screeched to a halt. One of the machines, my machine, had overloaded, sparks flying, smoke pouring into the air. And there, standing right in the chaos, was Ethan. Looking calm, looking prepared. Our eyes locked through the haze of smoke, and I knew he had set me up for something far bigger. The smoke still clung to my hair as I sat in the supervisor's office. My hands trembled against my knees, knuckles white. "Seraphine," my boss said, his voice clipped, his jaw tight. "That machine was under your redesign. Do you realize the cost of what happened today?" I swallowed hard, forcing the words out. It wasn't me. Someone tampered with it. Across the table, Ethan sat with a perfect mask of concern. He shook his head slowly, sighing. "With all due respect, sir, I saw her working on that system last week. Maybe she made a mistake. It happens." I spun toward him, fury boiling in my veins. "You did this. You've been sabotaging me from the start." The room went quiet. Too quiet. My supervisor's eyes narrowed. "That's a serious accusation, Seraphine. Unless you have proof." I froze, my throat locked. Not here, not yet. If I revealed Layla's data too soon, Ethan might twist it, erase it, spin it against me. I needed the right moment. "I'll get proof," I said, my voice shaking but steady enough to hold his gaze. "And when I do, you'll see the truth." The meeting ended with a suspension hanging over my head. If I didn't deliver proof fast, my career would be over. That night, I met Layla again, my nerves frayed raw. "He's closing in," I whispered. "They're ready to believe him. I have days, maybe less." Layla slid a flash drive across the table. "Then we play our hand. Everything's on here. Access logs, edits, timestamps. If you put this in front of the right people, he's finished." My fingers brushed the drive, and for a moment, hope flickered. But fear gnawed at me too. What if he spins it? What if they don't believe? "Then," Layla said firmly, "we make them believe. We go public. You have his face on camera, his edits in the logs. If management won't listen, the union will, or the press." The weight of her words sank deep. Going public would be nuclear, a career-defining risk. But maybe that was the only way left. When I left Layla's apartment, the night air was sharp and cold. I clutched the flash drive in my coat pocket like it was a lifeline. But as I reached my car, my heart stopped. Scratched deep into the driver's side door were 3 words, jagged and raw. "Time is up." The words carved into my car door, "Time is up," stared at me all night, even after I shut my eyes. Ethan wasn't just playing games anymore. He was drawing blood, one cut at a time. And if I didn't act soon, he'd finish what he started. I sat at my kitchen table with the flash drive clutched in my hand. Layla's words echoing in my head. If management won't listen, the union will, or the press. But the choice felt like a knife pressed to my throat. If I went public, I'd be branded a whistleblower. Maybe a hero, maybe a troublemaker. Either way, my career in Detroit's auto industry would be over. If I stayed quiet, Ethan would destroy me from the inside out. I thought about the years I'd spent building this life, the sacrifices, the long nights. My father's voice echoed from memory, telling me, "Seraphine, you have to stand taller than the ones who try to push you down." For the first time in weeks, my fear hardened into clarity. I couldn't keep running. I had to end this. The next morning, I walked into the plant with the flash drive burning like fire in my pocket. My suspension notice was already pinned to my locker. Coworkers whispered as I passed. Ethan stood near the line, chatting easily with the supervisors, grinning when he caught sight of me. I ignored him. I marched straight to my supervisor's office, shut the door, and set the flash drive on his desk. "This is everything," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every login, every unauthorized edit, every time Ethan Hale tampered with my work. He hesitated, eyeing the drive like it was poison. "If this isn't what you say it is," my voice cut sharp. "And if you ignore it, I'll take it further. Union, HR, media. I don't care. The truth is coming out one way or another." His expression shifted, the weight of my words sinking in. Slowly, he plugged the drive into his computer. Files opened, logs scrolled. Ethan's name filled the screen, over and over, But before I could breathe relief, a knock came at the door. The secretary poked her head in, eyes wide. "Sir, you need to come quick. There's been another incident on the floor." My stomach dropped. I didn't need to ask. I already knew who was behind it. Because when I stepped out of that office, I saw Ethan standing at the center of a growing crowd. And in his hand was one of my blueprints. On it, scribbled in bold red ink, were the words, "She's dangerous." The words on the blueprint screamed louder than the sirens had. "She's dangerous." The crowd murmured, their eyes darting between me and Ethan. I felt the weight of every stare pressing into my skin, heavier than steel. Ethan raised the paper high like a trophy, his voice calm but loud enough for all to hear. I tried to warn her. I told her to double-check, but she's been reckless. And now, machines are breaking down. People are at risk. Do you really trust her with your safety? Gasps rippled through the room. Heads nodded. Someone muttered, "Maybe she is unstable." My chest tightened. The trap was closing. This wasn't just sabotage anymore. This was character assassination. I stepped forward, forcing strength into my voice. "You're lying. He's the one who's been tampering with my work. I have proof." The room went still. My supervisor's eyes narrowed. "Proof?" Ethan laughed softly, the sound sharp as glass. "She's grasping, always blaming others. Ask yourself, where is this so-called proof? If she had any, wouldn't she have shown it already?" The crowd turned toward me, doubt thick in the air. My hand shook as it hovered over my pocket, where the flash drive burned like a secret waiting to be unleashed. But if I revealed it here, in the chaos, would they even listen, or would Ethan spin it before I could explain? Layla's words echoed in my head. "If management won't listen, make them. Don't let him control the story." I looked at the faces around me, co-workers I had worked beside for years, now staring like strangers. I realized something brutal. If I stayed silent 1 second longer, Ethan would win. I pulled the flash drive out, holding it high. This drive contains every log, every unauthorized edit, every time Ethan Hale sabotaged my work. If you want the truth, look at it. The murmur of the crowd grew louder. Ethan's smile faltered for the first time. He stepped forward, hand raised. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Seraphine. Give me that drive before you embarrass yourself further." I gripped it tighter, my voice rising above the noise. "No, Ethan, your game is over." But before I could move another inch, a worker burst into the room, shouting breathlessly, "There's been an injury on the line. Someone's hurt, bad." The crowd erupted in panic, scattering toward the floor, and in the chaos, I felt a hand brush my pocket. The flash drive was gone. My pocket was empty. The flash drive, my only proof, was gone. I shoved through the panicked crowd, my heart slamming against my ribs, scanning every face, every hand. But Ethan was nowhere. It was like he'd vanished into the smoke. By the time the floor cleared, the injury had taken center stage. A worker had been cut by a flying shard when the machine malfunctioned. They rushed him to the hospital. The supervisors barked orders. The alarms finally silenced. No one cared about me. No one cared about my missing drive. I stumbled into the break room, my hands gripping the counter until my knuckles turned white. Rage and despair warred inside me. He took it. He stole the evidence. And now he'll bury it. My phone buzzed. A message. I opened it and bile rose in my throat. A photo of the flash drive, crushed into pieces. Ethan's hand holding the shards. And beneath it the words, "Checkmate." I dropped into the chair, my head spinning. This was it. He had destroyed everything. But then my phone buzzed again. A call from Layla. "Seraphine, listen," she said quickly. "Don't panic. I set up an auto backup. Every file, every log you gave me, I mirrored them to the cloud. Ethan doesn't know. The drive was never the only copy." Relief hit me so fast it made me dizzy. You still have it?" "Yes," she confirmed. "But you need to use it now. He's escalating. The injury today? That's going to land squarely on you unless you move first." I stood, the exhaustion burning out of me, replaced by fire. Ethan thought he had won, thought he had checkmated me. But he didn't know the game wasn't over. That night, I drafted an email. Not just to my supervisor, but to HR, the union, and corporate compliance. I attached the logs, the access records, the video feeds, every single piece of proof. My finger hovered over send. But just before I pressed it, another notification lit up my phone. A video file, sent from an unknown number. I tapped it open. My stomach dropped. It was footage of me from one of my own hidden cameras, spliced and edited to make it look like I was tampering with the machine. Ethan had turned my weapon against me. The fake video played on loop, my face twisted into a villain I didn't recognize. Ethan had edited it perfectly, enough to fool anyone who wanted to believe the worst about me. My hands shook as I slammed the laptop shut. For a moment, the weight of it all crushed me. He had outmaneuvered me again. Every step forward, he found a way to twist it back. But then I looked at the flash drive shards in that earlier photo. His arrogance. His belief that I was cornered. And I realized something. Ethan thought I'd panic. He thought I'd stay silent. But silence was what gave him power. Not anymore. That night, I called Layla. He's edited the footage. He made it look like I sabotaged everything. Her gasp crackled through the line. That bastard. But Seraphine, the logs are still solid. The timestamps don't lie. If you put them next to his video, it won't add up. Anyone with half a brain will see the holes. Unless he spins it faster than I can explain. Layla's voice hardened. Then you don't just explain, you expose. Full force. Screens, files, live. Make it undeniable. The next morning, I didn't go straight to my station. I went to the auditorium where management sometimes held plant-wide briefings. Workers were gathering already, whispers about the accident still hanging heavy. Ethan was there too, leaning casually against the stage, wearing that smug half-smile that made my skin crawl. My supervisor cleared his throat. We need to address yesterday's events. There are questions about responsibility. Then let's answer them, I said, stepping forward, my voice louder than I felt. All eyes snapped to me. My pulse thundered, but I pressed on. I have evidence that Ethan Hale has been sabotaging my work for weeks. Not just sabotage, stalking, manipulation, framing me for his actions. Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but his smile never broke. And what proof do you have, Seraphine? He asked, his voice dripping with mockery. I plugged Layla's backup drive into the projector port, my hands trembling as the first log files lit up the screen. Access records, timestamps. Every edit with his name attached. A murmur spread through the crowd. The supervisors leaned forward, studying the data. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker across Ethan's face. But then he pulled out his trump card. With a flourish, he held up a tablet, and my doctored video began to play on the big screen. The crowd gasped, eyes widening as I appeared to tamper with the machine. There she is, Ethan said smoothly, caught red-handed. Believe her logs if you want, but this is her on camera. The room erupted into chaos, voices shouting, some siding with him, others with me. I stood frozen, my world spinning. The evidence was on my side, but so was his lie. And right now, the crowd didn't know who to trust. And then I realized this wasn't about documents or files anymore. This was about who could seize the narrative in real time. I stepped forward, my voice sharp and clear. Then let's put everything on the line, right here, right now. Ethan, if you're so sure, face me. Let's show them all. The crowd fell silent, the air electric. Ethan's smile thinned. The showdown had finally begun. The auditorium was silent, but the air buzzed like electricity. Dozens of eyes burned into me, into Ethan, waiting to see who would crack first. He held his tablet with the doctored video paused mid-frame. I stood by the projector with the logs glowing on the screen behind me. 2 stories, 2 versions of the truth, colliding in real time. Go ahead, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Explain why your name shows up in every unauthorized login, Ethan. Explain why the system records you editing my files after hours. He smirked, tilting his head. Simple, she gave me access. She asked for help, and now she's turning on me. Desperate people invent desperate lies. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few nodded. Doubt flickered everywhere. I clenched my fists. Then why hide? Why wait until no one's around? Why edit my work in secret if it was just help? His smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but then he laughed, slick and smooth. Because she's paranoid. She's setting me up. And look, here's the proof. He hit play. The video filled the screen. Me, my face, my hands, tampering with the machine. The crowd murmured, the tide turning again. My chest tightened, but Layla's voice echoed in my memory. The logs don't lie. Show the cracks. I stepped forward, raising my hand. Pause it. The supervisor froze the video. I pointed to the timestamp on the corner. Look, this says 11:47 p.m. on March 12th. But according to the logs, I tapped the projector screen, scrolling quickly. The system was only accessed at 1:03 a.m. on March 13th. By Ethan Hale's login. That video isn't proof. It's a forgery. The room erupted again, this time louder, voices clashing like steel. Some shouted that it didn't add up. Others argued Ethan could still be right. He stepped forward, his composure cracking. She's lying. She planted those logs. She's unstable. Everyone knows it. That's why no one trusts her. I raised my voice, cutting through the chaos. Then why did you break into my car? Why did you follow me home? Why did you carve "time is up" into my door? The crowd went dead silent. Ethan's mask slipped for just a heartbeat, his eyes narrowing, his jaw tightening. That was the crack. "I never," he began, but his voice was sharp now, brittle, too defensive. And then, from the back of the room, Layla's voice rang out. She had come, standing tall with her laptop in hand. "She's telling the truth, and I have the raw surveillance files to prove it. Every second, every edit. Ethan Hale, you've been caught." Gasps turned into shouts. The supervisors surged forward, demanding to see the files. Ethan's face drained of color, his smirk gone. But just as victory flickered in my chest, Ethan moved. He lunged forward toward me, his hand reaching Ethan's hand shot toward me, fingers outstretched like claws. For a split second, the world slowed. The crowd gasping, the supervisors shouting. Then he collided with me, shoving hard. I stumbled backward, my shoulder slamming into the projector table. The logs flickered on the screen, but I held my ground, refusing to let him take me down. "Get away from me," I shouted, my voice cracking with fury. The crowd surged, but no one stepped in. They were frozen, stunned, watching the mask finally shatter. Ethan's face was twisted now, no longer smug, wild, desperate. "You think you can ruin me?" he spat, his voice raw. "Everything I built, everything I deserve, you want to take it from me. You did this to yourself," I fired back, chest heaving. "You lied, you sabotaged, you followed me, you—" "Lies!" he roared, lunging again. But this time, I was ready. I sidestepped, adrenaline screaming through my veins. His hand missed, and he stumbled forward, crashing into the projector stand. The drive clattered, the logs still glowing behind us. Undeniable, inescapable. The supervisors pushed through at last, grabbing his arms, restraining him as he thrashed. "Get off me," he screamed, spittle flying. "She's the liar, she's the one." But his words cracked, hollow, weak. The crowd wasn't buying it anymore. They had seen too much. And then Layla's voice cut through the noise. Calm, steady, final. "I've uploaded the raw feeds to corporate servers. Ethan Hale's sabotage is documented, secured, and verified. You can't erase this. Not anymore." Ethan froze, his struggles faltering. His eyes met mine, blazing with hatred. For the first time, I saw fear behind them. "You'll regret this," he hissed, low, venomous. I straightened, my whole body shaking but unbroken. "No, Ethan, I'll finally sleep again." The supervisors dragged him away, his curses echoing off the walls. The room was left in silence, the truth hanging heavy in the air. For the first time, I felt the weight lift. But I knew it wasn't over. There would be fallout. There would be scars. Still, as I stood there, the logs blazing bright behind me, one truth cut through the noise like light. I had won. The next day felt unreal. The plant was hushed, whispers following me everywhere. But this time, they weren't whispers of doubt. They were whispers of shock, of fear, of relief that the truth had finally cracked open. Ethan was gone, marched out of the building under escort, his protests echoing down the hall until the doors slammed shut. Word spread fast. HR had launched a full investigation, the union had stepped in, and corporate had already suspended him pending review. For the first time in months, I walked into my station without dread. The machine hummed, the floor buzzed, but the poison in the air was gone. People actually looked me in the eye again. A few even nodded. One worker whispered, "We believe you now." And yet, the victory didn't feel sweet. It felt heavy. My body carried weeks of sleepless nights. My mind replayed every threat, every message, every scrape of his voice in my ears. I had won, but I was exhausted, hollowed out. Later, HR called me into a conference room. 2 investigators, notebooks open, sat across the table. Seraphine, one said gently, "We've reviewed the files Layla provided. The logs, the video feeds, they match. Ethan Hale's actions are undeniable. We want to commend you for your courage. But we also need to ask, why didn't you come forward sooner?" The question cut deep. I clenched my hands in my lap, searching for words. Because he was always ahead. Every time I tried to fight back, he twisted it. He made me doubt myself, and I thought, maybe no one would believe me. They nodded, scribbling notes. "That fear is understandable, but you've done the right thing now. This will go on record, and steps will be taken to ensure nothing like this happens again." Walking out of that room, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The war was over, but the battlefield inside me was still smoldering. That night, I sat in my car outside my apartment, staring at the scarred words still etched into the door. Time is up. Except it wasn't, not for me. My time was just beginning. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank note, and typed 6 words that had carried me through the fire. Never again, and never in silence. The days after Ethan's removal passed in a blur. The plant kept running, the machines humming as if nothing had happened. But for me, every sound carried memory. Every clang of metal was a reminder of the battles I had fought here. People treated me differently now. Some avoided me, as if my fight had made me dangerous by association. Others approached quietly, slipping in words of thanks, admiration, or apology. One worker whispered, "You showed us it's possible to stand up." But when the noise faded, I was left alone with myself. And that was the hardest part. I sat at my kitchen table one night, staring at the stack of HR papers confirming Ethan's termination. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt empty. Revenge hadn't restored the months of fear, the scars carved into my nights. It hadn't given me back the quiet peace I once took for granted. Layla came by carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one in front of me, her expression softer than I'd ever seen. "You did it, Seraphine," she said. "It's over." I shook my head slowly. It'll never really be over. He's gone, but his shadow's still here. Every time I close my eyes, I wonder if I'll see him again. In the crowd, in the dark. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "That's trauma talking. It'll fade. And when it does, what you'll see is that you're stronger than he ever was. He tried to break you, but you're still here." Her words sank into me like sunlight through winter glass. Maybe she was right. Maybe strength wasn't about winning the fight, but about still standing after it. That night, I opened my journal for the first time in months. My hand trembled, but I wrote anyway. I wrote about the fear, the anger, the exhaustion, and as the words filled the page, I felt something loosen inside me, a weight, finally shifting. I closed the journal, whispered into the silence, I survived. And for the first time, I believed it. Weeks passed. The plant settled back into its rhythm, the chaos of Ethan's downfall fading into a kind of uneasy quiet. But for me, life was no longer the same. Ethan was gone for good. Corporate fired him, the union blacklisted him, and word spread through Detroit's auto industry like wildfire. His reputation was in ashes. Mine, though scarred, was intact. I still had my job. I still had my future. But more than that, I had my voice back. I started speaking at safety meetings, not just about machines, but about accountability, about not letting fear silence us. At first, my voice trembled, but each time it grew stronger. And when I saw other workers nodding, listening, even confiding in me afterward, I realized something important. This was bigger than just my fight. Layla remained by my side, my ally through the fire. "You're not just surviving anymore," she told me one night as we walked out of the plant. "You're leading." Her words stayed with me. For so long, I had felt like prey, hunted and cornered. But now I stood taller, stronger. Not because the fear was gone, but because I had faced it and refused to break. One evening, I returned home to find the door to my car finally repaired. The hateful words, "Time is up," gone. I ran my hand over the smooth surface and let out a shaky breath I didn't realize I was holding. That scar was gone from the metal. The scar inside me would take longer, but it would heal too. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and opened my journal. On the last page, I wrote, "Justice is never easy, but silence is harder. I chose to fight, and I survived." Then I closed the book, leaned back, and let the city lights of Detroit shimmer in the night sky. For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. And I knew, whatever battles lay ahead, I would never face them in silence again.